Vi is in town because it's Will's birthday. Phillip is stressed because he catching it from all sides. And Will and Carlton finally come to an understanding. What's good, y'all? It's your good sis Erica Vane coming to you right here on Erica Vane TV with another Bel Air breakdown. In this video, we're getting into episode 8, Nobody Wins When the Family Feuds. And y'all, this is going to be an amazing conversation. I actually cried while watching this episode and I adore it so much. It's really hard to believe how much I enjoy each new episode even more than the one before it. I am utterly obsessed, which if you have been watching my breakdown of the series, you know that I really enjoy this show. I don't know how, but it continues to get better and better and better, and this episode did not disappoint. I'm even trying not to cry when I'm just doing this intro. It was so emotional. The complex backstory, the nuance in dialogue, the beautiful cinematography. The episode is just utterly brilliant. If you're returning, thank you so much for riding with me and having these deep Bel Air conversations. I appreciate y'all. And as always, we will be going live on Thursday nights. Tonight, when this video is released, we will be live at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to further this conversation. Be sure to keep the comments going in the comment section and let me know what you think as I go through this breakdown. Multiple comments is welcome. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications so that you don't miss out on any of my Bel Air coverage, because trust me, you're going to want to follow along and you're going to want to have these conversations with us. But without further ado, let's get into episode 8. So the episode starts off with Phillip and Carlton over on a golf course, and they are actually playing a game of golf, or Phil is playing a game of golf with an Assemblyman Hernandez, and Carlton has to be his caddy, and this is part of his punishment for the party. So Viv and Phil found out about a party, of course. Phillip ultimately had to call in a few favors, and I'm so glad that he did, because now Carlton can feel like, okay, you're not just prioritizing Will, you're not just compromising yourself or putting yourself in a weird position for Will, like how you got him out of jail. But Phillip actually lets him know that he pulled a few strings with the police commissioner to keep these things quiet, and Carlton gets a beat to really reflect and be like, oh, okay, great. And then to drive that point home, Phillip literally says out of his mouth, I will do anything to safeguard your future. Now maybe that's just something that the Carlton has been needing to hear, because he's been operating as if he was completely discarded now that Will has come into the picture, but at least he gets to hear it. Now what I will say about Phillip Banks, y'all, this was not his episode. And as I was watching, part of I don't like to be the girl to say I told you so, but I did drop my episode 9 and 10 synopsis breakdown. So after you watch this video, go and check out those videos. I actually recorded those way before I watched this. And one of the things I was calling for next week's episode, because in the synopsis it talks about Phillip and Geoffrey beefing, I literally give you the play-by-play for how I feel like the beef happens. And it's not happening in episode 9. It actually happens in this episode. I was so caught off guard, surprised, elated, but then not surprised, because this is what I expected from Phillip and his character. Phillip tries to be a good guy, but I don't know if he's really a good guy, y'all. And looking at this episode, he wields money and power and influence as if it's the only things that matter in this world. And when you're dealing with family, those are the least important things on the totem pole. And that's something that he continues to miss time and time and time again. In this episode, we see him reeling from the lack of support from Assemblyman Hernandez at the start, who points out, oh, your wife went off on this woman and can't go on a campaign trail. Your daughter's posting thirsty Instagram content. Your son is throwing these parties and people don't want to vote for you because of your family. Well, one, he has a very relatable family. There's a narrative that we could spin there. Phillip, speak up. Instead of talking about your family and their shortcomings, or how your family's shortcomings aren't a factor and your record is pristine, speak to the relatability of it all. You might be a millionaire, you might be very well off, but you still black in America and you're still a regular family. That's your piece. But okay, you too preoccupied trying to shuck and jive and impress this man that you can't speak to that. So okay, cool. But then we get to Vivian, and they are not necessarily still seeing eye to eye, because they have had the run-in in San Diego and haven't got back on a good foot. Vivian is already in a very displaced place now that Vi is there, because there's clear tension between them there. And because Vivian doesn't back you up, as you say, when it comes to Hilary standing her ground and wanting to continue to put out this content, now he's coming for her while she's trying to paint and making sarcastic comments about, oh, the sacrifice of her having art deadlines. Are you going to support her or are you not? Because she has been there for you. She put down the paintbrush for 15 years so that you can amass all that you have amassed, so that you can climb the ladders that you have already climbed. And now you mad on this good day because she's stressed about this internal beef that she's having with her sister. She come back to try to hit her paint deadlines and express herself, and you want to be in here talking about some I need your backup. You've had her backup. Sometimes you need to release the things that you don't have no control over. Part of Phillip's problem, which I think is a lot of men's problems, just to be honest, is that y'all think that y'all have control places where you don't. And then you kind of lash out when you are starting to run up against the point, the very valid point that you don't have control. I was very off put about how he confronted her while she was painting. And it's like, you want her to come to bed, you want things to be cool, but then you come to her as she's in her creative space with this type of energy, but then you also say that you want her to feel supported. You want her to believe that you've done all this stuff for her. You've done a lot of this stuff for you. You've done a lot of this stuff so that you could be in the best position that you needed to get where you were trying to go. It behooved you to have a stay-at-home wife that could handle all of the things that you would need when being a lawyer and then running to be a judge and now doing the run to be DA. Let's call the thing a thing. And I don't think that there's any greater example for how questionable Phillip is. Now, I'm not saying that he's completely a villain, y'all, so be clear. He definitely still, has solid individual foundational things, right? But his interactions with Geoffrey in this episode, while I called them and I knew that they were going to happen, were utterly unacceptable. The amount of loyalty that we have seen Geoffrey give to him and this family, the amount of dirt that Geoffrey has done to make sure that they keep Phillip clean, and for him to turn to him and then basically say, well, you do what I say because you work for me. Oh no, baby. Oh no, because the money is cute and all, the job is cute and all, but Geoffrey is definitely given the type of man who took this job with you because he believes in you and your family, because he supports you and your family. It was never about just the money. So if all you bring into the table is just the money and no actual respect, you don't have no respect on my name, you don't have no loyalty to me, you don't have no real stake in listening to my perspective when I have been your voice of reason, your comrade and your counsel, and not steering you wrong this whole time, and now you want to just throw this money in my face? Oh, go ahead and take that back. Let me tell y'all how annoyed I was watching him interact with Geoffrey simply because Geoffrey had a difference of opinion about how to handle Will and his father situation. And it moved Geoffrey so much so that up until the very end of the episode, he was about to quit had Will not caught him and asked for his help. Phillip is about to go through it in the next 2 episodes. And honestly, a lot of this is of his own making because he has very little self-awareness, has a high level of entitlement, and has placed too much stock in his idea and value in money and what he thinks is power and influence. And Phil ain't even the most interesting part of the episode. This episode was so amazing. Oh my God, it was so amazing. Before I get to Vi and Vivian, I want to go to Carlton and Will, who have a moment in this episode to kind of like squash things. And this is a full version of what we saw in the trailer where Carlton was saying that he basically spiraled when Will arrived. Will arrived and oh my God, this was such a validating moment watching this scene, y'all, because I feel like I have been saying this in all of my videos about how Will just showed up and he was everything that Carlton has been wanting and working hard trying to be, and it seemed like it was so easy. And the only thing that I was missing from this scene was I wanted Will to reply like, yeah, the social things might have been easy for me, but I've been also having it tough, because I think that Carlton has this very skewed narrative about Will and his life being seemingly easy because he's charming and because people like him. Usually if you have a strong suit in that area, something else is lacking. The same way that you don't have a strong suit in social, but you're solid in academics, you give off this like a little perfect persona and you have all this other stuff going on. There's give and take with both things, and I would have loved for Will to be able to express that as well, but we're gonna go ahead and let it be. Ultimately, Carlton decides to let everything go because he doesn't want Will and his relationship to mirror the relationship that's happening with Vi and Vivian after they both get into it, child, and this big blow up while Will is trying to open up his birthday gifts, which I can respect. He ultimately says to Will that he's fine with Will being with Lisa, just don't hurt her because she had enough of that with him. And y'all, that'll do it. That'll do it. That to me is the nail in the coffin of Will and Lisa are not wrong, because because it's one thing to have this principle that y'all are speaking of and this bro code, and you don't date your family such and such or so and so. Meanwhile, this person wasn't acting like family when you first got there, wasn't acting like family when you first found interest in this girl, and you had no idea because he was acting so much like family that he didn't even clue you into who the girl was. But then also it's clear from his mouth and from Lisa's mouth that while Lisa and Carlton were together, and we're assuming that this was either the sophomore year or before. So if it's middle school, y'all, I'm definitely counting it out. But if they were together freshman year or sophomore year, because in this scene, Carlton literally says that they were together a long time ago. Long time. They are juniors right now, y'all. Long time ago ain't really that long in reference to them having formative years as coming into adult. So let's go ahead and say that. But then also for him to confirm how much he put her through. So it's not even that there was an amicable split. It's not even that you were a great boyfriend and she broke your heart. You probably literally wreaked emotional and mental havoc on this girl. And you have the nerve to expect her to not be treated better just because this is your cousin? It's a no for me. And I don't care how many of y'all come into the comment section. I don't care how many of y'all send me DMs. No. To me, Carlton might have thought he was in love with this girl, but he couldn't have. He probably don't even know what that is just yet. He hasn't met his true love. Maybe Aisha's going to be his first real love, but it wasn't what we thought. I definitely felt like Carlton and Lisa were giving childhood friends, have grown up together, and you kind of get together because you're the one that's there and you start to have feelings for people, but you don't actually know what you're doing and you're trying to figure it out. Nothing really serious at all, let alone him being a damn menace in a relationship. Lisa deserves how Will looks at her. Lisa deserves how Will treats her. Lisa deserves how Will makes her feel. And to me, that is bigger than all y'all's principles and bro code and whatever else. Honestly, if you can't see the nuance of this specific situation, then that's on you. Argue amongst yourselves. Now, Hilary turns everything around in this episode, and I love this for her. Not only does she apologize to Jazz, but she also searches deep and realizes that this thirsty content ain't her. It's not something that she wants to do anymore, and she takes the leap to get out of the influencer house and get out from under Kylo, which is going to ultimately result in her having to pay a $50,000 fine and release all of the content that she has made in that house thus far. So I definitely think that we're going to get a bunch of behind the scenes thirsty content coming out, because Kylo now owns everything that she filmed, even when she was about to film in this episode and then she stopped. Remember, they have cameras all throughout the house. They're recording at all times. So he could definitely release that moment if he chops it up and screws it up and does some stuff with it. I ain't like Kylo from the jump. This episode, he was given master manipulator and he was given exploitation of black women, and the fact that you are a white man, we hate that for you, clown, goofy ass. But Hilary has freed herself from the shackles, creating an identity online and going along to get along and just make a few dollars. I'm so excited that she is doubling down in her vision and sculpting who she wants to be. Kylo did make a very good point in reference to pulling her history of abandoning things and quitting things, and she said that she was just trying to find herself, and I think that she is still on a journey to find herself. But in pointing that out, I think that he inadvertently allowed her to confirm to herself that she needs to stick this one out in reference to sticking to her morals, sticking to her standards, sticking to what she originally said that she wanted to do, and rejecting any opportunity or any person or any situation that is not going to be conducive to who she said she wanted to be when she first started out on this next pivot and journey in her life of self-discovery. So there's two very powerful dynamics that are playing out in this episode. It's the dynamic between Will and Vi as they dance around a conversation about Will's father, as Will is so happy and enamored and joyful. He's in complete euphoria having his mom there, professing to Lisa that he is a mama's boy, and it's so clear, but then also still struggling with knowing that she's hiding something and wanting her to give up all the information that she has about his father. And then the other dynamic is the dynamic between Vi and Viv, who have had so many years of like unsettled tension, resentment, competition, and ultimately lack of acknowledgement of the importance of the other in each other's lives, which comes to a head. It starts to spill over a lot into the events around Will's birthday, but ultimately the sisters are able to reconcile. And watching them, it was both triggering and liberating. I have two sisters, and me and my middle sister for years have not seen eye to eye. For years have just struggled struggled with acceptance of one another, struggled with, I think, fully seeing one another, struggled with the perceptions of one another. And literally all of that played out as we watch Vivian and Vi spar in this episode, and all of the many regular day-to-day life scenes. From when Vi first gets to the house and she admits to Vivian that she wants to tell Will everything about his dad, and Vivian pushes back like, he's going to hate us for this, you know that, right? To the family conversation, remembering their mom and the sudden turn her health took, which ultimately stopped them from continuing to do the reunions that they used to do, and also created additional strain within the relationships, because while Vi stayed to take care of her, Vivian went on to live her life, and Phillip confirms that they sent money, but yet money don't solve all your problems, Phil. You're presenting a pattern, bro. Vi made the poignant point that money don't change bedpans, and then Vivian's like, well, we could have hired someone. And I love this because Vi's like, you wanted to hire someone to take care of your mother? And Will's the one who, you know, makes the point that she was actually dying, not just sick, but your dying mother, you wanted to pay somebody to handle that for you. Got it. And this becomes one of the first of many potential arguments that Will has to kind of preempt and stop midway throughout this episode. And it's so brilliant how they use these to continue to build the tension up until its culmination and release in the outbursts that ultimately is the thing that's going to spur them to speak. But let's talk a little bit more about some of their other run-ins in this episode. Vi makes Will breakfast, and for the most part, the start of it is very amicable. They are going down memory lane, remembering when Viv climbed her little hot self, her little fresh self on stage with D'Angelo. But we have a little nuance nugget where Vi shares that she bought Vivian her first paint canvas set, and Vivian responds, well, you only did that to distract me because you were too busy trying to run after, which I would be assuming that it's Will's dad, but she didn't get to say anymore. And Vi says, no, it's because I saw your talent, but you never give me credit for that. It's the Easter eggs and the foreshadowing for me. From there, Will, diffuses it yet again and diverts attention back to him and says, you know what, Ma, you can take me to the beach. And then Vivian's like, well, I can meet you both for lunch if that's okay with you, giving Vi the death stare. And it's these two sisters facing off for me throughout the whole episode. The tension, the conflict, but also the love. Like, you could tell that they actually really, really do love each other and deep down miss each other, but are stuck on their own perspectives and their own points and their own feelings, and have spent years avoiding the conversation of what it is and what it ain't. Like when we get a call back to this point when they actually do make it to this lunch by the beach, it comes up that Vivian is painting again, going up for a fellowship, and Vi mentions how she's excited and happy for her to be in this space because she was very disappointed when Vivian walked away from the canvas, especially given all that her mother and she had done to set her up to be successful as an artist. And in the moment, Vivian decides to spar back, and she responds, and it's not like you knew what I was going through, because at the time you was busy running after. Interrupt from Vi, let's not go there. Well then, if y'all was going to box, why y'all ain't just say that? I mean, I was just definitely enjoying the sister drama way too much. It made me feel seen, honestly. It really, really made me feel seen and feel all of the things. And as I mentioned, all of that is a lead up to the big blowout at Will's actual birthday dinner, when Vi gives him a beautiful photo that he had never seen before of them when he was a baby. That's so sentimental and deeply impactful for him. But he follows it up by opening up Vivian and Phil's gift, which is a signed pair of limited edition Jordans, like signed by Michael Jordan. And this is one that Vi can't let ride. She literally calls Vivian out in this moment of like, you couldn't let me have this moment with my son. You wanted to usurp this moment by throwing your money around, throw your money at everything. And from there, it literally is like a volcano that explodes. The mountain that is Vivian and Vi's issues and their tension, a lot of the things that they had continued to bury for years and years and years, actually built a volcano, and it erupted in this episode. And honestly, it's on both of them. Vi struggles with feelings of insecurity in that she has spent so much of her life doing everything on her own and being the strong one. And it is hard. It is so hard to continue to show up for people, to continue to give endless amounts of love, especially when you don't have money to be able to fill certain gaps that you would like to fill. It's hard when you feel like you've given your all to all of your loved ones and then they don't see what you've given, or what you have given doesn't seem to amount to enough to even get a footnote in the book of their masterful life that they're crafting. I 100% understand what Vi's points are when it comes to looking at her little sister, all that she has sacrificed and done for her, watching her walk into the season of support and financial stability and wealth and privilege and so much more. Meanwhile, Vi has continued to struggle. And while not making excuses for the decisions and mistakes that she's made, right? She still wants to feel loved and appreciated for the impact of her sacrifices and the decisions that were right, the decisions that were good, like her deciding to leave Lou and finding the strength in the birth of her son, and her deciding to double down on her little sister who had a talent in art, the same little sister who was so willing to give up her artistry, which is a part of herself, in support of, I guess, Phillip and what he had going on to build all of what they have now, only to pretty much neglect said older sister who put you on a path to get all that you have right now. I think it was so beautiful watching them communicate as they came back together after this blow up, because it was for the first time, I think, ever that Vivian actually saw Vi fully and saw the pain that comes with being the strong one, the pain that comes with being the first and the willing to sacrifice, the pain and the stress that comes from trying your very best to be perfect and positioning yourself and your family for better. And then when they get that better, you're kind of forgotten about. And in Vivian, I see the pain of being a little sister that kind of felt eclipsed by the big bad older sister who could do anything, who could fix anything, who would confront anything, who was just so fierce and fearless when it came to who she loved, and what she wanted for those that she loved. So much of what I think Vivian was struggling with is feelings of inadequacy, guilt around some of the privilege that she gained from the sacrifices of others, and a little bit of competition with Big Sis. But after a conversation with Carlton, surprisingly, she is able to see Vi more fully, see how alone and isolating it can be to be a Vi in this world, and she goes and extends an olive branch, to which Vi accepts and owns her piece of it. And when I tell y'all, I was in tears. Super quick personal story, y'all, and I think why I think this resonates with me so much. Just last year, I flew to Detroit because that's where my sisters live. I have two younger sisters, and me and my middle sister, we would go for years and not even speak, almost like we're living just two lives as if each other didn't exist. We met up for lunch a year ago, and we tried to be amicable and it just turned into an argument. We stood on a corner, and I think in Bloomington Hills or something like that, Michigan, and argued outside of this ice cream shop for hours. And at the end of it, I came to the realization that one of my sister's bones to pick with me was that I always tried to be so perfect. I always presented myself as perfect. I always was the one to step in and fix this and do this, and she felt like I was throwing that in her face or trying to make her feel inadequate. And I'm like summing it up because I'm not like, I don't think I'm doing a great job articulating her points, but I got that understanding. And then I was able to articulate to my younger sister that coming from where I come from and being the older sister, being the firstborn, there were situations and circumstances set up for me where nobody was coming to save me. I've had quite a bit of help by way of sports and coaches as I've come up, but within my personal situations, within the home growing up, I was exposed to a lot and I had to figure out a lot on my own. There was certain things that I wanted or needed. Sometimes I had to make sure that I was the one to give it to myself. Even the Erica that y'all see today, the person who tries to be very self-aware, emotionally in tune, very, very mentally stable and just dialed in, right? That person was created, and where I come from, it wasn't set up for me to be this person. And it was the first time that my sister had heard me and like truly heard me of like, girl, I don't want to be perfect. I try to be perfect, and I do certain things out of survival and because of positive reinforcement of when I do well in school or I do well in sports or I excel, things are better for me. So many of us create these perfectionism loops, and I'm seeing that start to play out with Carlton. So I think my heart is softening a lot more for him, where you feel like you have to be perfect because that's where your value is. If you are still a student, if you're still an athlete, if you're still a person, then everybody must see that you're valuable and you deserve love and you deserve to be heard and you deserve to be seen. So for a person who does not feel love, who does not feel seen, sometimes those are the mechanisms and the pathways that you take to acquire the things that you're lacking. And watching Vivian and Vi in this episode took me back to that argument and then conversation with my sister. And I think that's why I'm emotional, because both of these women just had two very different perspectives and judgments. And I know for me, it took being vulnerable enough to just admit, like, you might have seen a perfect big sister that was traveling and doing this and doing that, but girl, I'm like a duck paddling under the water, looking calm on the top, but paddling for my life, fighting for my life this whole time, and doing so alone because I didn't even have my sister to be able to go to and support me. But anyway, I'm not gonna go all into that. We were doing a breakdown on the episode, but y'all know I like to give y'all a little bit of personal stuff sometimes to give you a deeper understanding of what my perspective is. Maybe we'll go into a little bit more in live. I don't know. Depends on what I feel called to do. Absolutely adored this episode. Aside from that, y'all, Vivian and Vi were to me the major points of the episode. On the back end, watching Carlton have the conversation with his mom and help her come to the point of realization, I think ultimately helped him get to a point of realization with Will, which is great. I love the little tidbit that we got of Will and Lisa in this episode. It just confirms how great that they are doing and how good they are for them each other. Lisa gets to meet Will's mom in this episode and they hit it off pretty much right away. Y'all, seeing Will introduce Lisa to his mom, Lisa feels like a lot like Vi, which would make 100% sense how he fell for her so fast. Like, I know that we want to fight this fight about how Will and Lisa ain't right, they so wrong, but why does it look and feel so right, y'all? Go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below, because if they wrong, I don't want to be right. And then last note, Uncle Phil cuts a deal with Fred that whoever wins their debate will ultimately get the Democratic Party's support and the other person will drop out of the race so that they can stop splitting the votes. And I don't know if this is going to end well for him, but okay. At this point, I'm pretty much overfilling this campaign and what it's costing him as well as the rest of his family. But you know, we already in the thick of it, so we got to continue. I cannot wait for next week's episode. Join me on live tonight again at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to chop it up everything episode 11 and season 1 of Bel Air. Now it's your turn. Jump down in the comment section, drop your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, go ahead and give me 4 heart emojis in your comments so that I know that you're a real one. You watched the whole video and I gotta show you some extra special real love. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already and give this video a like if you liked it, and I will see you in the next one.